Hello, everyone. I'm Joanna Penn, and this is Orna Ross, and we are here for the Alliance of Independent Authors monthly show in the down month of August. And sales are down, everyone's on holiday. I mean, whatever. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
I think Orna put the wrong link up. But welcome, and we'll just carry on. So we've got lots to go through today. Orna, do you want to sort out tech things while I carry on, or should we just carry on?
I think we'll just carry on. I think it's my summer brain combining with my very non-technical brain to produce one of my super stylish messes here, but as long as we get the information across, I think that's the main thing.
Oh, fantastic. So we've seen in the forums that everyone's sales are down and people are on holiday, and that's all cool, but we have had a very exciting event in the last week, and that is finally, after how many, a long time, we have the launch of Orna Ross's Secret Rose print book. It's terribly special edition. Orna, show us the book. Oh, wow. It is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous, yes.
It's gorgeous.
It is very beautiful. Clays did it proud. Jane Dixon-Smith did it proud. And I'm really, I couldn't be happier. But the actual words inside, yes, took a very long time. But actually putting together the print edition, I was just talking to Rebecca today, it was just May we finished the crowdfunder, and we had books by the end of July. Now, in publishing terms, that is just fantastic, you know.
That is super fast.
It's super fast. I remember in trade publishing signing a contract in 2003, and the book didn't actually appear until 2006. So.
I just think that's crazy. We just don't live in those times anymore. But tell us, because we were talking before, the hardback book there, it's now selling for £40, is that right? Which is about $65 US. And why is it so surprising that people are buying this, and what can other people learn from your hardback experience?
Yeah, I was really curious about this. So, you know, we all love ebooks, and ebooks have allowed us to reach readership in great numbers, much more than we would any other way. I still love print. I know a lot of indies don't, but I do. But I'm also very interested in, I think, you know, there's this idea that ebooks are going to see print books away, and I've never really believed that. I think what we're seeing is something very similar to what happened with DVDs and cinema, that they are actually complementary, and in fact that a print book, a nice, good print book, is becoming a sort of a desirable. And if you really love the book, for example, if I've read books on in e-version that I've really enjoyed, I've sometimes gone and bought the hardback just to have that book, and I know I'll probably never read it again, but I'm really happy to have it just as an artifact. Kind of gives me a feeling of comfort or something. But I'm also interested in the idea, ebooks are great, but you don't make much money on them per copy. So I was interested in premium and whether people would spend more money for a book and all the rest of it. So this entire project, the dedication on it is to all the writers everywhere, dare. So it was a daring project for me on three fronts. First of all, putting my work in with W.B. Yeats and between two covers. I found that very kind of daring. Secondly was crowdfunding, going out there and asking people to support the project. And thirdly, putting a price like that, £40 per copy, on it. And it's just been fantastic. It's only available on my own website, and I am really happy and surprised by how many copies are selling daily. And yeah, so I would say to everybody, think about a way that you can present something you're already doing in a new and different sort of way. So one of the books in this book is mine. It's Her Secret Rose, and that book is the background to the writing of a book by W.B. Yeats. It's all about his love story with his muse Maud Gonne, but he was writing his book, The Secret Rose, in the time frame of the novel. So I put those two books together into this special edition, which is a replica of his first edition. So, you know, use your kind of imagination and creativity and think about ways in which you might be able to do something like that, to create something that's already there and turn it into a premium, I hate the word product, but, you know, a lovely thing, a lovely object that people might be willing to spend more money. They're happy to spend £40 because it's signed, there's a card from me, And I think sometimes as writers we can forget people do like to get close to the process. A lot of the people who contributed to the crowdfunder said they just loved being part of the process. That was really special sort of experience for them. So all in all, fantastic. Loving it, loving it.
Yeah, and I think the point is that this is a special project. You are not immediately going to go into doing another one, right?
Never. Well, not for a very long time. No, actually, my mind is casting around to think, what will I do again? But I certainly won't be doing it in the short term. It's back to nice ebooks and, you know, nothing too taxing for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just saying before that I would probably do hardbacks when CreateSpace sorts that out, and they may do that. Ingram Spark, they do they do hardbacks now, so people can do hardbacks, and I do know indies who do hardbacks, but it is a special thing. And again, I am the voice of the business in this relationship, and I'm more, you know, my point is you have to work out the financials. Orna did it with crowdfunding, so getting the money up front to pay the printer, and I was that classic person back in 2008 with 2,000 books in my garage and no way to sell them. So what I don't want is for people to do a hardback run and then just have all these books in their garage. So just be careful, and you can do a small run of even 50 now, can't you? So it doesn't have to be 2,000 as I did way back in the day before ebooks. Yeah, so anyway, that's your news, isn't it, Orna? Do you have any? Oh, you have some news for the Alliance, don't you?
Yeah, we've been working. It is August, as you say, and people are quiet and away and on holidays and everything, but in the background we've been beavering away, and just essentially the project for the summer was to upgrade all our advice. We're kind of rebranding our guidebooks as how-to for authors, because we're finding that authors of all stripes are kind of wanting the advice that's there. You know, sort of marrying up our blog, which is now mutating into the Author Advice Centre, which we'll be dividing out into writing advice, editing, design, production, and so on. Basically just doing everything we can to make it easier for a particular writer to find the particular advice they need at the particular point they're at in the writing journey, rather than kind of here's everything all at once. So yeah, we've got a couple of new books coming in the series and upgrading the ones that are already there. So we'll be telling people all about that in the next newsletter. But yeah, that's what's been going on at that end.
That's fantastic. And since we last talked, I launched Deviance in ebook and print book, and just coming out in audiobook. I'm plotting my first co-writing experience, which will be happening in September. I'll be writing that in September, so that'll be interesting. And then I will, what else have I been doing? I've been working on what is called the Creative Freedom course, which is how to make a living with your writing, and basically putting everything that I've learned over the last 7-8 years into a course that will help people through the process of doing that. So I don't even notice like summer, especially because it's chucking it down with rain in London, and I've essentially been and rain makes me work, like, because I listen to rain all the time anyway, so as soon as it starts raining I have to work. So I've been working really hard, which I'm very happy with, but ready to get into this co-writing thing. And the reason I'm doing it, I was finally convinced, I've been thinking about it for a while, finally convinced by the masterclass with James Patterson, which everyone must be seeing on their Gmail advertised at the moment. It's on masterclass.com with James Patterson. It's being talked about in the Facebook group. I think it's marvelous. It's only $90, really cheap, and just fantastic. And the interviews with his co-authors just convinced me that this is a good idea, that creativity and collaboration is a fantastic thing. So I'm going to give it a go, and it's going to be a new standalone, new characters, new world for both me and the co-author Jay Thorne, who is a horror writer. And we're going to put a legal agreement in place, and maybe I'll talk about this next time or the time after, when we've gone through it, because I'm a control freak, he's a control freak.
Oh, it's going to be so interesting.
Yeah, we're putting it all out in writing, because of course this is a relationship for the rest of your life and 70 years after you die? Who's going to get the royalties when we both die, for example, which will happen. So it's a really interesting process, and I know lots of people are doing co-writing now, so that's interesting too.
It's another way is that self-publishing is changing the landscape, I think, in terms of people thinking about it. I'd be really interested to see how this goes, because I think of you as the indiest of the indie. So, if you guys can collaborate well, then that means it can be done. You don't have to lose your indie spirit, in other words, in order to collaborate. So it will be very interesting, and looking forward, as usual, you're blazing the trail, and looking forward to see what happens.
Blazing the trail, indeed. Okay, so in publishing news, we have had the Amazon KDP Select 2.0 has launched, and I'm laughing about it because we have Hugh Howey coming out going, "Oh my goodness, it's amazing," and then we have Joe Conrad going, yeah, Joe Conrad coming out going, "Oh my goodness, it's amazing." And I've talked to people, and they have yet again pulled their books off all the other stores, gone in with Select. And what I think we can say with absolute certainty is people this month and probably next month will be making more money if they are in KDP Select for all of their books. They will absolutely seem to be, from what I've been talking to people are making more money. But that's exactly what happened the last time around, and then things changed. So I make no secret of being, cross-platform and global and all of that. So what are your thoughts on KDP 2.0, Orna?
I think if you have enough books, it's definitely probably worth having a book in KDP Select, and choosing that book carefully. Best if it can be the first in a series, all that kind of stuff. But like you, the swings of the indie world are not really where I go. And ALLi advice is to be on as many platforms as possible, in as many formats as possible, and that takes time to achieve and but is worth it in the long run. So for anybody who's interested in building a long-term steady career and who doesn't want to be subject to the vagaries of one outlet, it makes sense to not to have all your eggs in one basket. Having said that, people of course do what is right for them, and we're all indies and we must decide what's right for our book. So much depends on how many books you have, what kind of genre you write in. There's just so many. It's the hysteria and the, oh my God, I have to get in there quick, and if I don't, I'm going to lose out. Not to be blown around by that, I think, is good advice. Just, if you're doing it, know why you're doing it, know what your goals are, like any other step in the process. Be clear, and then make your decision, and then just enjoy the ride and learn from the outcome and adjust accordingly.
Yes, the fear of missing out is a big issue amongst online in general. When people email me saying, I can't cope, and what about the high production thing? I'm on these forums and they say I have to write a book a month, and the KDP Select thing, and stay away from those forums. It's not like that in the ALLi forum, to be fair, and I'm not like that either. I think I've been thinking a lot about strategy, and I'm a total futurist. I'm not even a closet futurist anymore. I'm definitely out there, and I'm always thinking now, look, 5 years ahead. 5 years ago I had nothing. Really, I had a brand new site. I had no fiction. I had, a couple of non-fiction. I was working my day job. I was living in Australia. I didn't have nothing. What I had was nothing like I have now, 5 years later. And when I look 5 years ahead, I see the global platforms around the world that are not owned by Amazon. They're owned by, iBooks. They're owned by Kobo. They're potential. I think it's Facebook. I think Facebook is next into publishing. I think there's so many things happening that's what I'm building for, and I think the rush into the latest thing is an obsession with the current month's income, which I totally understand that it's important to make your month's income, but if you look 5 years ahead, I believe my business will be much better off if I'm wider and building the relationships for the long term and the readers for the long term in each of those markets. Takes a long time to build. It takes a lot longer to build an audience on iBooks, Kobo, and some of the other platforms than it does on Amazon. So yes, You heard it first.
Absolutely. It's just to kind of underline the point and totally agree with you. Books are not a short-term thing. Despite the fact that some people can write some books in a very short amount of time, generally speaking, building a business or a readership, or however you want to think about it, as an author is a long-term commitment and best thought of in those terms. So yeah, short-term thinking, usually, 5 or 6 months later, the same people that rushed in are now kind of upset because things haven't worked out the way they thought it would if they followed the money. And I think don't follow the money, follow the readers. That would be the advice I would give.
Fantastic. And hello, Natalie. We gave out the wrong link, but and Nikki, yes, it's lovely of you to join us. So if you wouldn't mind just staying on mute, and we'll come to a question if you have a question in a minute. So welcome to our live call. We're very happy to have you. So Orna, we also have some other news, don't we? So on Author Solutions, what is happening with Author Solutions?
Yeah, well, news just in today. Actually, the long-standing case has been settled. And Victoria Strauss just broke the news, Publishers Weekly covered it, but it's literally, we're getting paragraphs at the moment and the background has yet to be filled in. Valerie Shanley will be covering it in our news slot on Friday when we'll have more information. But essentially it looks like they settled.
So we'll never know, basically.
No, and I think, the whole thing is working, is how I would put it. This is people power. What we do know about Author Solutions and bad services generally is that they are, I better be careful with libel, services that people allege are not good. Generally speaking, those services are losing business. Authors are savvy, they're a canny bunch of people, generally speaking. They mightn't be, you might get them the
beginning,
first time.
They're not.
Sorry?
Yeah. They're not at the beginning.
Exactly. You might get them once, but you don't get them twice. And now that we have groups that kind of share the information and put the information out there, we are seeing that good services are just exploding exponentially, can't cope with the amount of business they're getting. And the services that people feel are not so good are
I'm not hearing Orna now, so I don't know about any. Just check.
Hearing me now?
Yes, can hear you now. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So yeah, just reiterating that point that services that are not so good are seeing business decline. Now there's this settlement out of court. And on we go. Interesting news as well that Autonomy, which is HarperCollins,
it's basically a slush pile. I hated it. I hated Autonomy. It's really old as well. I think it was 2008 it started. I remember it.
Yeah, it was Scott Pack's idea, and in fairness, it was an attempt to try to, harness new technologies and sort of get HC involved in the author space and so on. And then it just got stale. It didn't keep up, and then it got a little bit. It became, we're looking at this and we're looking at it in a little bit more detail, but it seems to be that they too were going to get into bed with Author Solutions, and some of the Author House imprints were appearing under HarperCollins, and then they were starting to say if you sell more than 10,000 copies, you'll get a HarperCollins deal, and they were using this carrot to kind of sell packages, and it was all getting a little bit off. And now comes the news it's gone. So we don't quite know the background yet, but when we do know what we're talking about, we'll let you know.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I would actually, we have got lots of questions, but I'd love to, oh, sorry. Yeah, carry on. Just my husband in the background.
Carry on.
Carry on. If either of our two live ladies have a question, do either of you? No, Natalie's shaking her head. Nikki, do you have a question? You don't have to. I just no. Okay, we'll just carry on. I just wanted to see if.
If you guys want to, don't want to feel you have to sit there watching, you can actually watch the Hangout without being in it. But again, you're very welcome.
We love to have you along. It's very fun.
No.
What a Hangout's about. Okay, so we do have a question. Sarah asks, how to deal with lines from songs? How much is fair use? Orna,
not much with songs. The music companies have been very vigilant about their lyrics, and my best advice would be, if it isn't absolutely necessary to the story, if there's another way you can do it, summarize or talk about the feeling that those words engendered, or play around with the words a bit so that it's not exactly the words of the song, I would do that. There isn't fair use gets very tricky with poetry and song because they're small pieces. So, in a novel, a paragraph or two. You'll probably, as an indie, get away with a few lines if you're really, really wedded to it. It's hard to imagine that a big music corporation is going to come after you, Goliath is going to come after David and actually bring you to court. But at the same time, you don't want the hassle of having put it into your book and then somebody comes along and tells you to take it back out and blah, blah, blah. So you can err on the side of caution, or if you're not going to err on the side of caution, definitely keep it to a line or two in order to be true to the spirit of the copyright law.
Yeah, and of course, Helen Sedgwick did a great hangout for ALLi, and that's on the YouTube channel, or Helen's book, which is Legal Stuff for Self-Publishers. I can't remember the title. It's legal handbook. Legal handbook. It's amazing. Like, I refer people to it every single day. So it is really good, and one of those things that we need as indies. This is a classic issue, and yeah, as Orna said, fair use on lyrics is particularly difficult. What is interesting though is I saw Hamlet the other day. Yes, I had a ticket to Benedict Cumberbatch's Hamlet, which was amazing. And what I noticed as listening to that was how many lines from Shakespeare's plays end up A, in songs, and B, as book titles. And of course, you're welcome to use as much of Shakespeare as you like, because it's like way out of copyright. So you might actually find that some of the lines you like from songs are actually in Shakespeare, in which case it's fine, because everyone reuses everyone else, right? To be fair.
That's true. You can actually trace the etymology of the and also know there is no copyright in titles. So yes, you can use a song title, I think, you can use a song title as a book title. No copyright in titles.
Let's just specify in English, because there is in German.
Ah, okay.
And they're probably in other languages. But yes, in German, as I discovered, it's becoming a real issue in Germany with self-publishing, because so my book Desecration ended up being Desecration-Verletzung, because we couldn't just use like Verletzung or another word, because so many words are taken in German. They're having to use double-barreled with English words in order to not infringe copyright. Isn't that crazy? They'll have to change that law eventually, because we all use the same titles, right? My book Delirium, there's about 18 books with the title of Delirium. Sure. That's crazy. Okay, next question. Dekira, which is a lovely name, says, for a first-time self-publishing author, how many months out do you begin advertising your first release?
Interesting question. Well, in short, the answer is the more time you can give your promotional activities, the better. So it's good not to do what most indies do, which is kind of publish the book and then go, right, now how am I going to tell people that it exists? It's very good to sort of prepare in advance. You use the word advertising though, and I would be very cautious about advertising a first book. Putting any money into actual advertising for a first title, I think, is generally speaking money that's not particularly well spent. There are exceptions. If you can get something like a book club, but you won't get it with your first book because you won't have the requisite number of reviews. You just are very unlikely to get it. You won't have the proper profile. So really, in terms of what you really mean is, I think, how do I market and promote my book? How do I let people know that my book exists? How do I, and that's something that you can't begin to think about soon enough, really. In fact, ideally, think about it before you even write the book, but it doesn't happen that way creatively for a lot of us. The book comes, we have to go with it afterwards. So as soon as you possibly can, once you know what your book is for, and by that I mean, is it to inspire, is it to entertain, is it to inform, is it to amuse, what is its function, is it non-fiction or fiction, begin to locate yourself and your book within the book ecosphere. Think about where you would be placed in an online bookstore, what are the categories you would be in, what are the keywords will pertain to your book, and begin to think about your book in those terms and begin to reach out to people and make relationships that you'll probably be very interested in yourself, because this is what the subject of your dearly beloved book, and therefore it's a subject that's dear to your heart. And begin to sort of, form relationships. And the second thing I would think about is, how am I going to give my book to as many people as possible? So you can start sharing your book, start sharing chapters from it on Wattpad maybe, start sending some of it to readers and getting feedback. And be prepared to give away a lot of copies of your first book in order to show people what you do while you write your second book. So I suppose all of that adds up to the final thing I'm going to say, and I'm sure Joanna will have loads to say on this as well. Don't load your first book with too many expectations. Think about just from now on until launch day, and give yourself a good long lead-in time. Just think about how do I let as many people as possible who would be interested in this book, how do I reach them? Where are they online? Where are they offline? But particularly online. Indies sell books online. And how do I reach out to them without going, hi, I've written a book, everybody should be interested, here it is, and buy it now, because it doesn't work that way. Most people aren't interested at all that we've written a book, and why should they be? So, Joanna.
Well, amusingly, since we talked about KDP Select, if you only have one book and it's your first book, I pretty much say to people, you might as well go in KDP Select. I think if you have fewer than 3 books, actually it's a good place to be, because you can do the price pulsing with their free offers. You will get readers. You actually will get readers in KDP Select. Whereas if you put a book on, just one single book on Kobo or iBooks or Nook, it may never sell any copies. So definitely KDP Select, if you have one book. The other thing I'd say is this is different to fiction and non-fiction. So if you have a non-fiction book, it will be on a niche, on a topic. So I have a book on career change. You can be blogging and becoming a curator on social media of articles about that topic. You can be on podcasts about that topic as an expert, building an email list. Years before, many people who write non-fiction books have been doing their expertise for years, and you can just have even one page, up on a website capturing email from, lots of things that you can do with non-fiction. So that's pretty easy, but fiction is a different kettle of fish as such. And I would say, for me, I didn't, in quotation marks, find my voice until really book 5, but certainly book 3, I actually started to have a clue what the hell I was doing with my fiction. So I promoted the hell out of my first fiction, like anybody else, like most people do. But it didn't, I sold, I think, about 400 copies in the first ages, even though I had a platform, so-called. So I would just relax a bit. If it is fiction, relax a bit, write the next book. And as we've seen, generally launching with more in a series is a better idea. So I know it's really difficult, and I didn't have the patience for it. But as Orna said, the expectation that a first book will do really well is a myth of the publishing industry. And it does happen for some people occasionally, but it is not something that generally happens. Even like Harry Potter, I was talking to someone about that. It was book 3 when it really took off. Like, it wasn't book 1, and J.K. Rowling was like rejected loads of times. And so it's a very, I think we do overemphasize the first book because of the myth that the publishing industry has sort of pervaded around debut authors, which doesn't really count anymore. Okay, well, that was fun. Amusingly, we have more questions on marketing. I think, look, let's just be honest, everybody wants to sell more books. I want to sell more books. Some people think I'm successful. I look at other people and think I'm not successful. So we all want to sell more books, and we are all struggling to sell more books. So we're just offering you our advice, but Orna and I just as much as anyone are learning. So Kayla says, how can I boost my sales? I'm preparing to release a new book in January 2016, starting with pre-orders for this book in October. But I'm a little discouraged. My first book didn't do too well. I sold less than 100 copies, and most of those were in person. My online sales are pitiful. How can I better target my audience for the next book, which is YA dystopian, and increase my online sales? So I'm going to scoop up the Wattpad straight away, in that if you are writing YA dystopian, Wattpad.com is a great place to be posting stories and chapters early. Certainly YA readers hang out there, and there's been some YA book deals out of that. My other point is, here it seems as if this second book is not related to the first book. If it is, brilliant. That case, you can promote the first book, maybe even put the first book on free. So I know it's really hard, and I'm struggling at the moment. I've got the third in my London Psychic series just came out, and I'm now thinking I need to put the first book on permanently free. And it's a book I care deeply about. But I know if I put the first book on free, then I will sell the other two off the back of that. So it is a difficult decision, but it can definitely make a difference to sales. Also, pre-orders, I just had this discussion with Mark Coker, who's going to be on my podcast, and of course he's an ALLi advisor, Smash Words. He says that books with pre-orders generally sell more than books without pre-orders. I personally am wondering if that is skewed by the fact that most pre-orders that do well are by people that have an audience. Because with pre-orders, you still have to drive people to the pre-order, as Orna had to drive people to a Kickstarter, the crowdfunding, not Kickstarter, crowdfunding thing. So if you have an audience, I think pre-orders can work, but I'm not sure that a pre-order on a second book with a first book without much audience is going to work that well. So I'm not so sure about that. Also, January, it's funny, we're talking about this being a down month. I believe that January is a hardcore month to launch.
I was saying don't launch fiction. That's what I had.
Maybe do February.
Two things I wanted to pick up on it. The first is, don't launch fiction in January. The only thing you should launch in January is weight loss book.
Self-help weight loss, yeah.
Anything in the mind, body, spirit realm. But outside of that, wait until February, or possibly even March, because February tends to, with Valentine's Day in the middle, there tends to be a lot
romance.
Of stuff around romance, exactly. So if I were you, I would wait until March. The second thing is, I'm just picking up, and I may have this wrong, but just a hint, when you said that you sold most of your books in person, I'm wondering, are you selling print books only?
Good point.
And that would explain why you've only sold 100 online. I could be wrong in that, but if that is your strategy, you definitely need to have an ebook, and you will find that you will do better with an ebook. And thirdly, then, on the pre-order thing that Joanna picked up on, if you are going, absolutely no point in having a pre-order. I did this myself. I put a book on pre-order. I didn't have time to do a strategy around it. Absolute waste of time. I think 8 or 10 people kind of pre-order the book. So, unless you have a strategy for your pre-order and you're going to bring people to that pre-order, and it's going to be a good strategy, really engaging, compelling, and they have a good reason to actually say, yes, I want this book that's not coming out for 6 months or 3 months, even though my Kindle is full and, I have 100 books on it that I haven't read yet. So be strategic about that. So hopefully, you'll find some help in some of that, and do come on to the ALLi forum anytime to continue any of the discussions that we're having here tonight.
Yeah, that's really interesting you mentioned that. I think you're right, because selling less than 100 copies, I mean, if you go in KDP Select, I think, and put it on free for your 5 days, you're definitely going to shift more than 100 copies. I would probably say 99.99%, if there is an ebook in KDP Select, it will shift more than 100 copies. So I think maybe you're right there. I assume that everyone's got ebooks, but you're right, so many people don't have ebooks, and it's still very surprising to me. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so I had a question that came to me this week, and by an ALLi member, around keywords, and you know, he said, why isn't this working for me? You know, this keyword category thing, I keep hearing about it. What the hell's wrong? And I said, he sent me the list of keywords he put on his book, and I was like, why are they just one word? And he said, well, it's keyword, right? It's just one word. And I said, no, it's keyword phrase. So I just wanted to make sure that people realize this, because this is a big deal. And this particular person, I'm not going to name any names, but he's been, you know, somebody I assumed would know this, but didn't. So I'm just going to, one example of my book, Stone of Fire, a couple of the keywords I have on that book: men's adventure. So men's adventure is 2 words. It is one keyword in the Amazon and the Kobo and all the other fields. Women's adventure, another keyword. Conspiracy thriller, another keyword. And the other thing with those keywords is that they're actually categories. So those 3 keywords get me into the categories of men's adventure, women's adventure, and conspiracy thriller. So keywords can also get you into categories. And if you Google Amazon KDP browse categories, you'll get a drop down a whole list of the subcategories you can get into with keywords. And then a couple of the other ones, I have one of my keywords is supernatural mystery action thriller series. That is 5 words. And that is just one key word. So have I laboured that point enough now? But it's one of those things that it makes perfect sense that somebody would think a keyword meant keyword. Yeah, but this is huge.
Print book, you know, but it's the assumptions that we don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, this can make a massive difference, and you find these keywords by using Amazon as a search engine. If you go to the search bar, change the little flippy thing to Kindle, and then start typing in, you know, just brainstorm things, you will come up with these things. That's how I got supernatural mystery action thriller series as a keyword, because it's something that people actually search for. And that book is, you know, comes up a lot and does lots of downloads and things. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because that question just surprised me, and I think that knowledge can really help people make their book appear on the more granular level. And that granularity of discoverability, oh, that's a good phrase.
Very technical.
Yes, that makes it, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. That actually does make a huge difference. So please, everybody, and I've had a go at Orna about this with some of her books. I've been like, why aren't you in this category and using these words? So we all need to revisit this stuff, you know, absolutely. And of course, Amazon changes things all the time, and again, I use Amazon, but it's true of everyone. But they'll be adding new subcategories quite regularly, so you have to keep an eye out to check that there might be something new for your book. Like supernatural thriller has now appeared on the KDP category list, but it's still not searchable on the front end. But I'm hoping that will happen, because that's like my category. So have you got anything else on that categories keyword, Orna?
Just to say that in the marketing and promotion section of the Author Advice Centre now, there is if it isn't there today, it'll be there tomorrow, an article called Optimizing Your Amazon or something like that. And it has I will get the link and we'll put it on for you later. It has all the details you need about how to go about this and how to think about it and how to approach it. For everybody, it's different, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, don't just copy my keywords.
The principle is, and I think this is something that I see over and again that people don't realize, the principle is to go as small as you can, not as big as you can. Most people seem to think that, you know, if I say historical fiction, I'm going to get more readers than if I say, you know, 1920s Ireland or something, and it's the opposite. The smaller, very bad examples, but anyway, the smaller you go, the better. So you want to appear in those small categories. It looks better and it gets you more visibility.
And this really is indie power, as in I have traditionally published author friends who are just you know, are in terrible categories and clearly have no control over any of that. And I say, well, why don't you do this, 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 this? And they're like, well, I can't do that. And my publisher has just stuck me in literally fiction or literary fiction without taking it down to a subcategory. So this is an indie superpower that by mastering, you will really help your chances at any stage of the game. All right. Oh, and the other one I wanted to mention was I actually interviewed Ricky Woolman from freebooksy.com, which is coming up on my podcast, and she's amazing. Like, wow, she's just awesome. She's now one of my favorite people in the indie world, and they just launched newinbooks.com, which is their latest it's paid promotion, yes, but you know, is there any single business in the whole world that doesn't pay for promotion? No, there isn't. But what's interesting about New in Books is it is the first, I believe, it's like the first one where they are actively promoting new books. So all the other paid promotional sites, you have to have a certain number of reviews to be promoted. So most of us, like on BookBub, I only ever go for a first in series, never the latest book. So I promote the first one in order to sell the latest one, you know, kind of thing. But with New in Books, it is specifically for new books. So I just had Deviance in it today. And it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing. It is, and the reason I mention it is for the literary fiction writers mainly, and those people who do, you know, struggle to sell those standalones that have amazing covers, because there's a lot of traditionally published books in this list. It's one of the, like, the fussy librarian, the, you know, the kind of upper echelons of promotion. So check out newinbooks.com. And of course they do free Booksy, bargain Booksy as well, but this is kind of the other end of the scale from what I can see. And I mean, I don't know of any other promotion specifically for new books. Do you, Orna?
No, that's good, and I think we'll see more of this where, you know, again, people getting more granular. They're going to specialize in on a certain aspect of, and all good, because more niche we go, the better on everything. Yeah. And if we have paid promotion that takes us directly to the readers we want to reach, that's great. I mean, I know they all have categories and things that they operate, but I think that's great, and welcome any services that are well thought out, and yeah, all good.
All good. Okay, so that is that's pretty much everything that I've got on my list. What are the plans for September? I'm writing Risen Gods is my new book, and launching course, and generally being a busy bee. What are you up to, Orna, now you've launched your print book?
I'm working on how I self-publish my books. So I thought the time had come for me to actually go very deeply into my motivations and my, you know, what I'm doing and why I do it. But the book is really aimed at helping each writer find out how they should publish theirs. So I will talk about my decisions and how I came to them and why I made them, and then at the end of each section there'll be questions to answer and checklists to do, and it's a sort of a mix of a case study, a very in-depth case study, and a workbook, really. So the idea being that you pick up, again, whichever section you're at and go through it in depth, because I think what we're finding with the Alliance more than anything else is that it is those conversations where we go quite deeply into what we do and why we do it and what our motivations are and why we, you know, why we do what we do, why we made the choices we made. It doesn't mean that the choice I made is the right one for you, but if you really understand my motivations, you're going to come to a deeper understanding of your own. And I think especially on the first two books, writers are fumbling in the dark to some degree. So yeah, that's what I'm on. And I'm finally getting the first audiobook up there. Collected Poetry is going through audio. Yeah. So it's just sitting there month after month. Finally going to get up there and come back to audio now that things have calmed down a little bit. But it's a busy autumn in ALLi, and Frankfurt Book Fair is around the corner, and NINC Novelist Conference also. Lots of amazing writers there who have very big backlists who want to know how to reach a global audience. So we're thinking very much in ALLi at the moment about how we can make that global thing meaningful. It's only useful if we know how to do it, and I don't think we've cracked it yet. So anybody who has any feedback on selling books in territories that is not their home territory, we're very interested in hearing from, so we can share that knowledge.
You mean selling foreign rights, translation rights?
Not so much that as selling your book in English in other territories. So, there is a huge hunger in most territories for English language books, where we're very, very lucky to write in English. But I'm talking even the crossover between the US and the UK is very poor. It's not, there are some people, I'm one in fact, who sell more in the US than the UK, even though I'm based in the UK. And there are some in reverse, not so many, but actually it's a tiny percentage. Most people do well in their home territory and just do a smattering outside of that. So I think it can be so much better than that. It really can.
I agree, but again, I think this is a maturity thing, as in I see that the US, UK, Canada, Australia, these are pretty much the only markets where ebooks are mature in any way, and maybe up to 50% of the market. What we're seeing in every other country in the world is, ebooks at 0.2%, maybe 2%, and hopefully rising. But this is another futurist thing. What we're seeing with Google Loon, with Facebook Internet.org, what we're seeing with global streaming internet, which is coming, and cell phones, is that we're going to see more and more sales on cell phones in other territories. And I'm always talking about it. I've actually sold books in English in 68 countries now. Yes, ebook only. Yes, through Kobo, and on all 51 iBook stores. So I just think this is a time thing. I think, as ever, we've been early. Indies are early in things. German, I've again early with translations, and that was pretty much a loss, because these markets haven't even really started. Like even Spanish in the US hasn't even started yet. So I just think we're a bit early. Give it 18 months, 2 years. I think again, maybe I'm too bullish, but certainly 5 years. We're going to be seeing a massive amount of shift in our income. I mean, I'm actually going to start measuring it next year, the percentage of income outside the US and the UK. Because I think right now I'm probably making 0.5% of my income outside the US and the UK, and Canada, stick Canada in there. But I think that is going to grow, absolutely.
I completely agree with everything you've said. And I also think that just with what's there, a lot of us can do a lot better. So, I don't believe that people are necessarily doing as well as they can, even in the US market, which is a mature market, and maybe a saturated market, or Canada or Australia, or places where it is already up and running. And I suppose the thing is, as those readers come in, we want to be there. So it's about, how do we make sure that we're well set up for what's coming?
Yeah, and I mean, everyone should realize again that online marketing is global. And, like 15% of my podcast listeners are in China. It's crazy, it's brilliant. So to know that everything we do online is accessible to everyone online, this is also a big deal. So when you're thinking about marketing to people outside your country, think about it that way. And how I targeted America, just a little tip, I scheduled social media in the American time zone. I think people forget about time zones. Like, you actually have to schedule things at a different time. So I put all my tweets, Facebook posts, everything into the American time zone. And that actually helped me build up an audience in the US. So that's just a little simple thing to be, and also make relationships with authors in America.
Sure. I know Guy Kawasaki tweets every tweet 4 times, every 4 hours.
In different time zones.
In different time zones, every single tweet. Which is very counterintuitive, but he swears by it.
Anyway, I think we're done. So we will be back on the 29th, Tuesday, the 29th of September, same time and similar place. And thank you, Nikki and Natalie, for joining us on the show. And thanks Thanks so much, Orna, and thanks everyone listening, and we'll see you next month.
Happy writing, happy publishing. Bye.
Bye.